how did you, or rather, what gave you the confidence to, instead of doing what I think a lot of young entrepreneurs do, which is actually end up with kind of a bloated organization where they just start bringing on all these people, like what gave you the confidence, like that I can just do this myself? And more importantly, like, even all the things you just talked about, right? This and this that led to doing 100,000 a month. How were you able to do all of that yourself, like without bringing anybody else on?
There's two different things here. The first is that I just had absolutely no clue how to hire. It just didn't make sense to me. Like I didn't want to learn about it. And so I was like, okay, it was always on my mind, like I'm just going to do this myself. Like I didn't know that creators had teams behind them at the time. And so
I didn't at first either.
Right. And so I'm just like, yeah, if they can do it, I can do it. But at the same time, like I have this 4-hour workday philosophy where it's kind of like a spin on Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. But I saw I've never read that book, but I saw the title of it when I was a kid and it was just like 4-hour work week. Okay, that's a cool idea. And it just stuck in my head. But then I kept thinking like 4-hour work day for some reason. And so subconsciously, like whenever I worked more than 4 hours a day, it's like, this is a problem. Like I saw it as a problem and was like, okay, what do I have to do better in order to just like, why can't I work 4 hours a day if that's a thing? And so that's when I started going into like the focused work philosophy and like understanding more of that, productivity tools, and just like prioritizing what I was doing and not caring if I cut certain things off. Where it's like, in terms of Twitter and Instagram and that stuff, when I was growing it, I feel like people overestimate like how much I was actually working. Where it's like, I didn't even have time blocks for writing content. I would just do that like off the whim in my phone. I'd write in my notes and then copy paste it over, schedule it. And then in terms of cross posting to different platforms, that takes 10 minutes to copy paste something over to Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. I don't have any I have a scheduler for Twitter, but not for the other ones. It's literally just copy paste. In terms of newsletter, like that takes me 30 minutes to an hour every morning. So we're at maybe 1 hour a day here so far. And that's my entire traffic generation.
Yeah.
That's all of my traffic. And then aside from that, maintaining the community and like digital economics stuff, that maybe takes 30 minutes to an hour a day. Writing the book, I would spend about an hour a day on that. So we're at 3 hours now. Like those were my levers. And it's like I always treated the first hour of my morning for like building something. So for the past good amount of time, it was writing the book. But before that, it was building out the community. It was building out the product. It was doing client work. It was like whatever product I had, whatever the highest level thing that was going to take me to the next level would be. And then after that, it's just about like systemizing and working into your day. And that's why I like the digital products so much, because they don't require much upkeep at all. And so if I want to go and build something next, I have ample time to do so.
So you're on track to do like between $1.5–2.5 million this year, maybe more if it's a really good year.
Yeah.
Are you you're serious that you're only working 4 hours a day?
Guaranteed,
Every day?
yeah.
How many days a week?
7.
Do you refuse to work more than 4 hours? Like if you go in a minute over, are you like, fuck this?
No, like right now it's honestly like 2 to 3 hours where I went to the coffee shop this morning. Yeah, well, it's really dependent.
You have me questioning like my whole life.
I mean, we can audit your day, man. Like,
yeah, that's just crazy to me.
Well, it's like, okay, so this morning I went to the coffee shop just because lack of distractions. I like to go there. Wrote the newsletter, like finished up the newsletter that I had to write, like finish up in like 30 minutes. Took me about 30 minutes to like format it, send it out to the list. Checked in on like community/digital economics. That was like 30 minutes to an hour. And then the rest of the time, honestly, I was just distracted like on Twitter.
Don't you ever feel like, do you never feel like, oh man, like I have more stuff to do?
Okay, wait, no. Okay, so this is kind of where the lines get blurred, where I walk a lot, like a metric fuck ton.
Like how much?
20K steps a day.
Okay, that's
like,
a shit ton.
It's a good amount.
That's a lot,
more or
man.
less. Like,
that's a lot.
I know. And so, but that's the thing. So I'm walking maybe 2-3 hours a day because I see it's necessary for like creativity. to some extent, where
Yeah.
I'm listening
Yeah.
to long lectures, I'm listening to audiobooks. And this is where the lines get blurred, is where I'm texting Joey about business stuff, or I'm texting the book publisher guy about certain things.
I would consider that kind of working.
Right. And so so in terms of like me sitting down for focused work and not just literally doing the things that I do every single day, in terms of like going on a walk, then maybe it adds up to 4 hours now because of it. But that's the thing. So if we work in the walking, which originally, like, I don't really think of it as that, because to me, it's not work. It's just walking, right? So if we bake in walking and all that, then 4, 5, occasionally 6 hours total.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Dan Koe exposed.
Is that the
more than? No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
I need to do like a day in the life, because
you really should. Like, that is absolutely intriguing to me, because I am way in the other direction, and I wish I was.
You're in like monk mode right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I cannot. I have like okay, if my current life state and my desired life state are not matching, I will just use every free moment to sort of like it deeply bothers me, right?
Yeah.
And I sort of apply that stress to myself, like, oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. But something that I like listening to you talk about is like the idea that, like, well, if you rest, you'll do better work when you actually are working, right? And maybe these 12-hour days you could probably do in 4 if you weren't so burnt out all the time. And I'm trying.
It's difficult to like internalize and actually do that, because that's the other thing, is like, even though I personally, so if we make the distinction between like work and rest, work is you focusing on a work-related task. If I'm on a walk and my mind is actively engaged in the default mode network, which would like push me into that rest area where I'm generating more creative ideas, then technically I don't really consider that work if I'm checking in and like doing whatever. But that's just the thing, is like, it allows you. But the other thing here is that it's really dependent on that desired lifestyle of yours and what the business model is, and if you're like required to do that. Where my desired lifestyle is what I'm doing right now, and I want to maintain that by all means possible. And at the same time, I highly value for myself like creative, philosophical work. That's just what I like to do, and
I can tell.
Yeah, and what I like to prioritize.
Yeah.
And so the walks to me are absolutely necessary for that, like generating ideas, writing them in my phone, like having those dedicated creativity blocks where I'm not at home and being distracted by, in that case, I'm distracted by work rather than like the other way around, where I'm being distracted from work. And so, yeah, that's really the main thing. But I also do want to clarify there that there are times when I'm building something new. Like, I know in 2-3 months, when the book and software are about to launch, I'm going to be doing like 12, 14 plus hour days.
There we go.
Just because I know I'll have to. And I love those moments. Like,
yeah,
they're f***ing amazing.
Well, it's great whenever
really
whenever you're in that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's this thing where you're in that moment right before, like leading up to the big launch or whatever. Is always more fun than when it actually happens.
Oh yeah. And then you just drop, man. That's what happened with like a cohort launch a few days ago.
Yep.
Not days, weeks, where it was like building up, and you're like, and then you hit it, and then
it's like,
just like, you just drop and you feel lost, but then you regain.
Huberman talks about that like ad nauseum, right? And I think that really, I'd recommend it. I think that really has a lot to do with dopaminergic cycles, and I think that the fact that like the anticipation that you have of that big moment when it happens, like that is the thing. Like that's the thing.
That's it.
And that's why you keep working, right? Because it's like that's the thing. Another question. This is a little bit non sequitur. Do you consume alcohol? Do you drink?
Occasionally. I have been less. Like, I'm not against it in any way.
Do you think it's like okay in limitation? Do you think people should eliminate it? Do you think it doesn't matter?
It really depends. Where, like, I don't see it as evil. I don't see it as like whatever it may be. I really just think it's like, what are your personal goals? Is it standing in the way of your goals? If it is is the other thing still, is why you're drinking still important enough to try and work it in? And if you can, then that's fine. Where it's like, I don't know, it's happened like on and off for years where I'll be going out and having a few drinks every weekend. And then occasionally some of those nights I'd get absolutely plastered. And it never, since it was like Saturday, Sunday, and I had thought about it and done my work prior to it and had like Sunday off completely, it never really threw me off track.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure I had some brain fog throughout the week, but I never really noticed anything inherently bad about it. And it's like, yes, I'm damaging my health to an extent. I understand that. I'm young. I'm not attached to alcohol in any way, where right now it's like I went to a music festival in Tampa this weekend.
Which one?
Sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, went to Sunset. First day I had a few drinks, and then second day I just wasn't feeling like having anything. It was still a great time. When, I don't know, right now, at this point in life, I really feel like I can play it by ear.
Nice.
And so I'm not close to it, but at the same time, because I feel like if you close yourself off to it or renounce it, that's where the problems start.
Yeah.
That's where you start binging. And it's the same thing with like food, where, I don't know, when I just allow myself to, I feel like I don't have to do as much.
Yep.
And I can enjoy it so much more.
Yeah, and it's almost kind of like a refreshing perspective to hear, even just like for myself, because I have a tendency, and I think a lot of my audience, and a lot of the discussions that I've even had that I have on the channel, right? Like, we talk about things in absolutes, right? And in like a very dramatic way. And I basically quit drinking a couple months ago. It's been maybe like once or twice, and I think we have a tendency to get like overly married to these ideas, like, I am never doing this again. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, dude, I grew up with really strict parents, and I did some dumb shit when I was a kid because I had super strict parents. Yeah. Whereas if I had parents that weren't that way, I probably wouldn't have even wanted to do that shit. But I was like so fed up. Do you know what I mean? And I think people do the same thing with alcohol, with drugs even, you know, people who never try it once in their life to maybe figure out they do or don't like it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like they finally are like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to Coachella, and they get, you know what I mean? And it's like Molly for everything, and they almost die. Yeah. And it's like, I do think there's an argument to be made for balance, but I think it depends on the person, right? Because there are uber successful people who are degenerates, literally. Yeah. And we can, and by the way, we can look at some of the wealthiest, if your tracker of success is purely money, look at some of the wealthiest individuals of the world and look at, just by their exterior appearance, tell that they are extraordinarily unhealthy. Remember those yacht pictures of Elon? Shirtless out on that, or like Warren Buffett is always promoting his. I mean, it's not a coincidence that he promotes McDonald's, right? He's a Coca-Cola guy, but like, there's a lot of very uber rich people who. And there's also people who are immensely successful that are influencers, creators, like Alex Becker, if you're familiar with him, who is currently on a kick of like, I will never drink again, right? You have to eliminate all these things. I noticed personally, just in my life, if for no other reason than just from like an emotional and mental perspective, I feel better. Maybe it's placebo, maybe it's not, whenever I'm very, very diligent about my diet and alcohol consumption. But you know what? I am almost certain there will be periods of time in my life wherein I'm on like the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm also happy. So I think it's just about sort of checks and balances, you know?
100%.
So Dan, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they keep up with Dan Koe?
Yeah, really any social media at the Dan Koe, YouTube Dan Koe, website thedankoe.com.
SEO, let's go. Okay, well, Dan, look, I appreciate you coming on today. This is a really fun conversation for me, and the cool part about having a podcast-based YouTube channel is I get to speak to people like you. So I appreciate you giving me some of your time today, man. And he's pretty buff in person. He's got a lot of tattoos, so I'm a little bit scared, but I'm mostly enlightened, and I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.